right, so very good afternoon to you. I will carry on from where we left last time. And in my understanding, we were discussing about the agency theory, and in the agency theory, we were discussing about the different denominators of agency cost, but how we can spotlight the agency cost. Of course, we need to know the theory, and the theory basically comes from this adverse selection and the information asymmetry that can happen between the principal and the agent, because the utility functions of the principal and the agent are not always aligned to one another. And often there are some points when there is a conflict of interest. And this conflict of interest can be a very big contributor to the agency cost, which the firm can inflict with. And we also had discussion that in an ideal world, in a very utopian situation, your bonding cost and your monitoring cost can be zero. But the third component of agency cost is called residual loss, because that's the ultimate edge which the agent enjoys over the principal. Because the principal is not observing the agent's action 24/7. And you know that there are only 3 or 4 or 5, maybe 6 times a year when the principal happen to be in touch with the agent when they have those meetings, the board meetings and the committee meetings. Otherwise, these principals, they keep an arm's length with the agent. So in that case, agent have a complete, you can say a freebie. I mean, it goes sometimes unstoppable. So in that case, the information advantage and all the reality which principal are never aware of, agent is and agent should be aware of. And this gives the agent a very vital information edge over the principal. And this is where there are many things which principal cannot detect it. And that is the residual loss. So the residual loss basically is the final edge which the principal has over, which the agent has over the principal. And this would always remain. In a public company, this would always remain, no matter how controlled the company is, but the agent is the one who has the more information than anybody else. Or let's put it this way, that the agent should be having more information than anybody else. In a second circumstance, when the agent doesn't have more information about the company than anybody else, then I don't think we should pay him even more, because then what is the fun of hiring him or her? I remember at one stage there was a discussion in the class that how do we quantify the agency cost? And I said, I remember that agency cost is a variable. Okay, so this can be approximated by different proxies, different measures of agency cost. And 3 measures which are quite prevalent in the empirical literature are R&D expenditure, the asset utilization ratio or the efficiency ratio, and the third, which is very widely used, is the performance-based pay to total compensation ratio. Okay, so basically the performance-based pay to total compensation ratio is to align the interest of the agent to the company. The idea is that if the agent is working hard in the interest of the company, then the stock price will go up, and all the options and the warrants and the stocks which the principal is paid, because you know that the big portion of the modern day CEO salary is coming from the performance-based pay. So there is a natural interest of the principal to experience increase in the stocks which the company is providing him, okay, the stock value. And if the stock price of the company is going up, the agent is a natural beneficiary of it. Agent gets the benefit. So the agent would be very happy if the stock price goes up, because then his bonuses, their values go up. All right. So in a very, how to say it, this makes the agent work hard, become more loyal to the company. So this is one measure. The second one is that the asset utilization ratio, that how much annual sale, how much total sales revenue the agent is able to produce from the given amount of assets. So any company, if you observe a company over time, for example, last 5 years data, and you find that the annual sales to total assets ratio is going up, this would imply that the company is making efficient utilization of its assets, resources. The other one is the R&D expenditure. So if the ratio of research and development expenditure to the total sales, for example, if you treat R&D as an expense, so if this ratio is going up, it means that the company is improving. This shows basically the bonding of the agent with the company, that the agent is having a strong bonding with the company, and he or she are doing very hard to improve the company's future by spending a substantial amount of money in R&D activities. So these are the three common measures of, remember, these are the measures. These are not exactly the agency cost calculation thing. So these are only the proxies, the measures which we use for agency cost. If you want to try in some assignment, then you can do this way. So you can find a company's these three ratios and see how they go on in the last 5 years, or you can even compare between the two companies. Like, for example, you can take Apple and Microsoft and see how these three ratios are being compared for the last few years. So you can have the intra-company comparison, like in point 2, or you can have the intra-company comparison, like in point 1, when you are comparing the same company's performance over different periods of time, and see that if the company is showing a progression path or regression path. All right. Otherwise, I think I mentioned that when you have those, the regression, when you regress the performance of the company, and if you see that the performance of the company is a function of the executive actions, then in that model, the error term, the disturbance term that we use can also catch up the agency cost effect. All right, so we move on to the next theory, which is the resource dependence theory, or some people call it resource dependency theory, but I think I am more comfortable in using the word resource dependence theory. The resource dependence theory, by its philosophy, by its nature, it's complete opposite to the agency theory. In the agency theory, if you see, there is an element of suspicion, there is an element of policing the top managers. So in the agency theory, we have this kind of feeling that the agents may exploit or expropriate the company's resources. So it's very important that we govern them, we discipline them. So there is an element of policing in the agency theory. But in the resource dependence theory, the approach is different. Here we assume that the agent is a resource. Agent is a very important, like the company has the physical resources, the company has the tangible assets, intangible assets, you have some physical resources, you have the financial resources. The same way, the company has the human capital, right? And the CEO is a very major reflection of the company's quality of human resource, and that is contributing to the company anyway. So the question is that how we make best use of his qualities. So according to this RD theory, or the resource dependence theory, the board capital is comprising of two types of capital. The one is the human capital, and this includes experience, which comes from experience, expertise, your skills, which you occupy, and basically your education and the reputation. So basically, if you have 3 E's in your portfolio, strong E's, experience, education, and expertise, then your reputation increases. And the second capital that we use is called relational capital. And the relational capital is something which comes with the existence of the network of ties which the agent has with other companies, the external environment. Basically means that how well connected the agent is. We assume that the company which we are interested in, the CEO and the top managers of that company should be very well connected with the outside world. If they all are working, they're marvelous, their education, expertise, everything is great, but they're very inward looking, very shy, where they don't want to have any interaction with the rest of the market. I don't think they will be aware of what is happening. So it's these days, in the modern day, you all are very, very much aware that networking is very, very important. Your linkages with the bankers, your linkages with the major suppliers, the big customers, your connections with the government agencies, your connections with the organizations which are across the country. Those networks are very important. Your connections with some legal experts is very important, because it's quite common that the companies can suddenly fall in some legal trap, or they can have some strong financial problem. So those top managers who are well connected with the banks, financial institutions, the legal organization, the regulators, the government agencies, they definitely can use their influence to get a better deal and get some favorable, situation. So that way, a company's board capital. So see the approach. In the agency theory, we somehow intuitively we consider the board of directors as from a liability point of view, that how they can become a liability on the company. How they can put burden on the firm. But in the resource dependence, we consider that the board of directors can contribute the company's value being an asset. And the asset come from these two major resources, the human capital and the relational capital. I have used these two terms quite extensively in 2 of my articles. I think the one is about the quality of the financial reporting, the busyness of audit committee and the quality of financial reporting. And the second one is about the busyness of board of directors member and their impact on the firm value, firm performance. So over there, I make this kind of categorization that we have the human capital and we have the relational capital, okay? And when you combine these two, human capital and the relational capital, it becomes a reputational capital of the company. So the reputation of a company's board of directors basically come from the richness of its human capital and the relational capital, okay? In the agency theory, if you remember, we can divide the board of directors into 2 major sides. And the first one is the executive directors. They are called insiders. And then we also have the non-executive directors who are outsiders. Some companies do not distinguish between the further classification of the non-executive directors, but it's very important that you do it. Because if you don't do it, then you can be mistaken that every non-executive director or every outside director is a independent director. The fact is that it's not same. It's not always true. You can be an outside director, you can be a non-executive, but at the same time, you are a dependent director. I hope you remember the name which I gave to these directors when we were discussing last week, who are neither executive nor independent, who are neither fully independent nor fully dependent. Anybody remember the name of those directors? Who are visibly non-executive outsiders, but they're not independent. And I have a special name for them. Sorry? Say again? Say? Gray. Yeah, gray. Very good. Because you can have very black and white distinction between the executive directors, who are the top managers, and also the independent directors. And these are in between the two. So they are called gray directors. And I think we discussed that these are basically those directors who are apparently outsiders, but they have strong business and economic interest with the company. Like they can be some customer, supplier, some consultant. Yeah, so maybe they are also representing some trade union or even some government organization. So they are quite strong in their own. They have their own stakes rather than, yeah. And I think we discussed that if you want to call somebody a truly independent director, then that director should not have any other economic interest with the company, except that that director is getting his or her honorarium for attending the company meeting. That's it. So not substantial business interest or any financial incentives from the company, even though it's not true. So that's insiders. Then we have the outsiders. We know who they are. We also, one more word, we call them gray, but we also call them affiliated directors. They have strong affiliation with the company. But if you go by, yeah, so you can categorize. So it would be a good task for you that if you choose a company and you can find out that who you think. Well, I think having the most challenging part would be to categorize the gray and the independent directors. About the insiders, it's very straightforward. So I don't think that there is any problem about that. According to the resource dependence theory, the first category definitely is of insiders, no doubt about it. But as we proceed, we find that the other directors, they could be split into some categories. And the first category is the business experts. These are the people who are the current or the retired executives of the other for-profit organization. Well, they can be of the non-profit organization also, but mainly they should be representing the for-profit organizations and directors who serve on the large corporate boards. So you may have the directors of the company, your company, whose executive or whose directors are also serving the other big company. These directors own experience and vast knowledge because they have been in the business for a long time, and they have the first-hand experience of solving many problems. And they are the people who can be like the troubleshooters if your company is stuck into some major trouble, or there is a catch-22 situation when the company wants to make a decision, but it's unable to because the decision is so peculiar or so complicated. So in this case, these people, business experts, owing to their first-hand knowledge, which they have gathered, the experience they have gathered over time, because they are very, they are very seasoned, they are very, they have very vast experience they occupy. So they people can be very useful to the company to make some decisions. These are the business experts. The next category is called support specialist. These are the specialist people. Then who are they? They're experts. These are the experts. And these are the specialists. And these are the specialists. I'll come to this discussion. What is the difference between expert and specialist? These are the directors who are expert in certain specific, distinct areas. Nothing less, nothing more. So they are very peculiar, very, they have this special expertise in a given field, and they can only be useful to the company in those typical fields. That's it. If you want to ask them for a general advice, they will not be able to give you any general advice. But if you want to ask them something which about their own field, they would be the gurus. They would be knowing everything. They're supposed to know. They are called the support specialist. The way I understand, based on this category, that who are the experts and who are the specialists. Experts are the people, they're more like jack of all trades, in the sense that they can do bits and bobs of basically everything. So they are like more like fixers. They can fix the problems, any problem, because they have been on the corporate boards for many, many years. Sometime, even though they have served in finance, but if you discuss about with them some financial, some problems with the marketing or the organizational structure, they would be very much useful to help you, because they have worked in different capacities, and at least they have experienced those problems. On the other hand, the support specialists are very, very specific. If you have a support specialist in your company board, and this person is a finance expert, then you can't expect any other thing which this director can contribute to. So I would say that if I have to distinguish between expert and specialist, expert is more wide but less depth, but specialist is less width but more. Wait a sec, did I say opposite? Yeah, expert is somebody who has very wide range of knowledge, but the depth of knowledge is not much. On the other hand, specialist doesn't have very big width of knowledge, but whatever he or she knows, they knows the depth of it. The depth is very vast. And this is why the first thing which comes to my mind about, I was wondering one time that who could be the support, who can be the support specialist type of people. And you will find that in many American universities, there are finance professors or the organizational sciences professors who are working on the board of directors as well, because they are really leading minds in their field. They know nothing else, but they know their field the best. And when the companies who they represent need them in some issues, they are the best people to provide information. But these are more like into more technically sophisticated advices. But the more general problems which the company encounters, then these business experts are more useful. So these are more like practitioners type of people, and these are the real, the very, very intellectual kind of people. That's. And then we also have one more category of directors, according to the resource dependence theory. And these are the community influentials, those people who have who are the faces of society, people are aware of their presence because of their special skills, or even because of their special status in the society. Many NGO people who are very well known, their representatives can also be on the board of directors of some company. Some community influential, some sports celebrity, some art celebrity, Somebody who has worked for the welfare of the underprivileged people can also be on the board of directors of some companies. Some university representatives, yeah. No, I'm not talking about those very expert professors, but some other people who are representing, who work like on the board of some universities or some other education institutions. They can also be, they're very well known and well respected names in their societies, in their community. So they can also be on the board of some companies. So that is what we are going to discuss today. Their expertise is very vital, very crucial. And here you can find, I made some kind of task for you that you can find out some, if you just pick up some random company and you can find out that how you can categorize the directors based on the resource dependence theory. Okay, so it's important that when you select some random company, it's nice to then you can make those categories based on the resource dependence theory as well. Is anybody having any question or a comment to make? My plan today is that I would take you to the Finnair's annual report, and then we can find out that can we find the questions that are in these slides, can we find the answers to them when we look at the Finnair's annual report or the corporate governance report? Yeah, questions, comments? No? So in the next part, I would like to take you through the annual report of a company. And what I have chosen today, just a sec. I was thinking that I would show you. My apologies, I think I didn't, I chose the wrong. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so I hope you can see this report. And this is the corporate governance report of Finnair. Yeah, it has a title. So it's a corporate governance statement or report. And normally in the companies, when they open their corporate governance report, they highlight that what type of regulatory framework they are associated with. So here you can see that the regulatory framework of Finnair is split into two types of corporate governance system. One is external and the second is internal. May I ask you, is it visible to you? Can you see it?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. So one is external and the other one is internal. And you can see that the external framework is very straightforward. I think no listed company in Finland is having any escape from the external framework. Every company is registered according to the Finnish Companies Act. Then, because all these listed companies, they require the external funding through equity shares or the debt. Hence, they are also listed as per the Finnish Securities Market Act. And because they are stopped from, there is a restriction that they can't do any violation of regulations. They also part of the Market Abuse Regulation Act, that they cannot do any malpractice like monopolistic practices, any restrictive trade practices. So for example, if it is reported that this company is encouraging monopolies. It wants to act as a monopolist in the Finnish market, and it is laying down some artificial barriers so that no new company can enter the market, and the existing companies are forced to flee, run away. Then this company who does this kind of practices would be under this, would be in trouble, because then the Market Abuse Regulation Act would be chasing it. Of course, you have to have the corporate governance, and the Finnish Corporate Governance Codes 2020 are very famous. I strongly recommend you that you should read it. The Finnish corporate governance system is one of the best in the world, for sure. It's very simplified in many ways. It's not as complicated as the American corporate governance is. But the beauty of this Finnish corporate governance is its simplicity and its clarity. And then, very important, the regulations and the guidelines issued by the Finnish, by the Financial Supervisory Authority and the NASDAQ, by NASDAQ Helsinki, because we know that Finnair is a public listed company and it's listed in NASDAQ Helsinki, which is basically the Helsinki Stock Exchange. It's, of course, it's managed by NASDAQ. And then there are, so here, Finnair or any company in Finland has no escape. You have to accept them. And then depending upon the business you are in, you can also be covered under some special act. So for example, some company which can potentially contribute a lot to the environmental degradation, you know, it can pollute environment, then that company would be also coming in that additional special act as well. Okay. But these are some very generic acts which any company in Finland is covered by. And then we have the internal framework. Of course, in the internal framework, we have the Articles of Association, which is like the constitution of the company, but it's more like an internal constitution. The company have a lot of role to play in it. You don't have to take it from outside. You can have a lot of rules and regulations which you can make for your company based on your own wishes. Then we have the code of conduct, what is company supposed to do and what company is not supposed to do, what company directors and executives are supposed to do and what they are not supposed to do. So it's like more like a do's and don'ts. And then we have the charters of the board of directors and its committees. It's very important. It's more like it's not very different from the code of conduct, but it's more like a code of conduct in reference to the board of directors and committees. And then you have the charter of the internal audit, which is the most important, one of the most important requirements, because the quality of the external audit depends on the quality of the internal audit. Remember, the external auditor just verifies what type of information you provide them. Okay, but the onus of providing the highly credible, quality, truthful information to the external auditor rests on the internal auditor. So the internal audit is, in many ways, is even more important than the external auditor procedure. And then we have the policies, standards, rules, and all those kind of internal communication. So here, so the company has to follow these two parallel sets of corporate governance. And then this is the structure of the corporate governance. So you have the shareholders, right? And then there is a nomination committee. Nomination committee generally is the one which nominate the board of directors and the CEO. So they basically are the headhunters for the company. And then there is a general meeting of shareholders. It's more like the session of the parliament, if I can compare with the country. And the auditor are very vital. Then there's a people and remuneration committee. So how much you pay to your top executive, the board of directors, and the audit committee. So these are some important pillars of the governance of any company, and the CEO is like the Prime Minister. So you can see that there is a list of the details of each of these institutions. These are the members of the board of Finnair. And you can see that it seems to be I think I mentioned to you once that generally, if you are an Anglo-Saxon country, in those countries, the company's board of director is including of independent board of, like for example, we call them executive board of directors and the non-executive board of directors. But in Finland, it's a little bit tricky. That in Finland, the board of director is only basically referring to the non-executive board of directors, not the executive one. For them, there is some executive committee or executive team or something like that. So it's a bit confusing. So when you read the board of directors of a Finnish company, you hope that it would be further split into executive and non-executive. It's not, because in Finland, the board of directors means it's a non-executive board of directors. So these are the people who are basically the non-executive directors, and you can see that there is a chairman. Chairman is often the non-executive director of the big companies, and it seems that the board of director, non-executive, is fairly diverse in terms of nationalities and in terms of gender. You can see at least 1, 2, 3, 4 ladies. And there is also international, I would say. There is a British gentleman, then there is this lady from Sweden, 1, 2, 3 Swedes, 1 Brit. And which country this gentleman come from? I can't see it. I don't know which flag is this. Is it Irish? Ireland? Maybe it's Ireland. No, that's all. I think it's Italy. Well, don't test my knowledge. So, and you can see here is that the key positions of trust. And the key position of trust, you can see. Okay, first of all, see that they are given that how old these people are. And then it's also mentioned that what are they doing in Finnair, basically. For example, Tina, she's born in 1981. She's master's in economics. She also has some professional qualification, and she's member of the Finnair Board of Directors since 2019. So she's comparatively new. So basically, all these non-executive directors are fairly new. The only exception is the Jana Tuominen. She's been on the board since 2014, so nearly 6 years. And then this lady was from 2012 to 2019. Okay. Remember, the board of directors also get re-elected. These non-executive board, but I think there's a limit to which they can be re-elected. So they cannot be re-elected forever for the rest of their life. You also see that what is their occupation. For example, this lady Tina is president and CEO of Marimekko Corporation. So you can see that she's a director, she's a CEO of a company, and then she's also on the board of directors of Finnair. Does the bell ring in your mind? Have you heard this kind of thing before? That when you are on the board of another company, you can be the executive of a company, and that executive can be also the board of directors of another company. Have you heard it before, this kind of arrangement? Hmm?
Yes, to me, especially in Finland, it's quite small circles.
No, this is not just confined to Finland. This is across the world. This is in every country. Every country. I would say that these number of the main occupation or the other duties which the boards have, which I'll come to soon, are very few in Finland. If you look at the portfolio of the American directors, you will see that there are so many things doing at the same time. Today we were discussing one theory called resource dependence theory. And in that resource dependence theory, we were discussing about the business experts, support specialist. Remember? So to me, Tina Costco seems to be more like a business expert for Finnair, because she's an executive of another company and she can, all those troubles, all those things which she can experience by herself in Marimekko, she can also apply her expertise. She might have come across many problems by herself, and if Finnair is in that situation, she can share her own experiences and provide a better guidance.
I think she's also like a business partner, because if you ever flown with Finnair, there's a lot of Marimekko products in the flight, like serviettes, and even some of the planes have like painting of Marimekko in them, like highlighting the Finnish like brand, and like Finnair and Marimekko, they both are like very rooted to Finnish culture. So
is it Sauli who's speaking?
Yeah, it's me.
Sauli, can you smell agency cost now?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Can you, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like she's there because they are like partners, and
okay. So I'm not saying at all that she's there, but these kind of things, when you have strong business partnerships, then you are apparently an outsider director, right? Remember, we discussed about non-executive directors?
Yeah.
And the non-executive director doesn't mean to be independent director.
Yeah, but I think she kind of is like a dependent.
Yeah, so there is some kind of dependence, because as you said, that if you are on board in Finnair, you can see many products made by Marimekko.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously there is a strong business relationship between the two companies, and why not? Why not? But I would, in that case, if I go by the agency theory, I will not call this lady as a totally, I would call her non-executive or outside director, but I will not call her independent director, according to the agency theory. And according to the resource dependence theory, she is more like a business expert. She's not a support specialist because she is not on the board because of her extreme deep knowledge of finance, legal sciences, or any aviation technology. So she's not that person at the same time, right? So if I have to take her by two theories, I would call her like affiliated directors or the non-executive dependent director, if I see her through the agency theory. But if I see her through the lenses of resource dependence theory, then I would reckon her as a business expert.
Yeah, and basically like marketing expert, I would say.
Yeah,
in this company.
Very right, very right. And then we have, for example, this gentleman, Jouko Karvinen. He is the chairman. And normally, I think we discussed in the very first lecture that if I have to compare the CEO as prime minister of the country, then the president of the company or the chairperson of the company is more like a president of the country. He's more like a big monitor and checking that the prime minister and his cabinet is doing good job. So the same thing is done by the chairperson of the company, that the CEO and his team are doing great job. So he's more like a main monitor and if anything is going on wrong according to the in violation of the spirit of the company, then he can jump in and he can exercise his impact. Well, he's a board professional, and what are the other key positions of trust he has? He's a member of the foundation of the supervisory boards of IMD Business School. So he's from Switzerland. So he's a top academic as well, isn't he? So if according to the resource dependence theory, if I have to consider him, which category he comes from, I will call him as a support specialist, because he has some special academic knowledge which he can apply, in Finnair. Is any other thing he does? I don't think he has any other interest which member of the travel company. So here is another interesting case. We have Monty Brewer. Monty is he's a board member, so he's a member of the non-executive board of directors, but he's also a member of the board of directors of Allegiant travel company. So I don't know what you can make out of it. And then we have this lady, Meng Meng Du. She is having her education is in economics and computer sciences, and she is on the Finnair board for the last 3 years. She's a digital advisor, so she's more like a tech person, which I'm not. And then her key responsibilities are, trust are, what she does elsewhere is that she is a member of the board of directors of Scandia, and she is Netonet and Group and Some Invest. So she is also having some key professional responsibilities in the other companies. And then we have Jukka Erlund. He has a very big list of. He's also the executive vice president and CFO of Kesko. So he is somehow having the similar situation which Meng Meng and Tina has. Yeah. And what are his other positions of trust? Of course, one position of trust is that he's a CFO and vice president of Kesko. He is the chair of the tax and economic policy. So he's a regulator, committee of the Finnish Commerce Federation. He's a member of the Economy and Tax Committee of Confederation of Finnish Industries, and he's also the member of the supervisory board. So he's basically the non-executive board of Varma Mutual Pension Insurance Company. So when you read the profile of these directors, you can find some very interesting facts. At least you have some food for thought. That what it means. Of course, they have three Swedes also. There's another Henrik Hellberg, and then Jonas Mortensen. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting board. And then you can see that there is some of the corporate governance, that how disciplined. Normally we take one more variable in the empirical research called the board discipline or the board commitment. And then we need the proof of this variable. So how we approximate it is that we can see that how committed you are in attending the meetings. So for example, you can see that there's a board of directors meetings, there's an audit committee meetings, and then there are people and the remuneration, which means you select people, this headhunting team. And you can see that only those people are mentioned who are the members, because not every member is a member of the committees also. For example, if you want to become the member of the audit committee, then the rule says that you have to have some finance and the accounting background. Not anybody can become the member of the audit committee because it's a very special, it's more like a team of support specialist type of people. You can see that mostly everyone have the 100% attendance, except for Maya Lisa. She has attended 1 out of 2 meetings also. There might be reasons. So more or less, it's near 100% attendance of the board and committee meetings. So you can see that hardly in the committees, nobody has ever been absent. You can see that why Meng Du has 5 meetings and why Tina has 4. Maybe Tina joined this meeting late. So while ever since Tina joined, there has been only 4 meetings. But she attended 4 out of 4. So basically the record is nearly 100% of all the team members or the committee members as well. And you can see that more or less the Finnair board is quite young actually, and it's very diverse. So yeah, so it's the country I was confused with was Ireland actually. First I said Ireland, but then I thought it's Italy. Yeah, so it's half of the board is Finn, and then Swedes are the next category, and then US and Ireland. So yeah, so the age-wise also it's young, gender-wise is quite tenure. The experience, yeah, is quite comparatively young board of directors. And then we have the committees, specialist committees. And I hope you will find out that there has to be audit. All the members of the audit committee have to have some knowledge of, accounting and finance. So you can see that these are the main jobs of the audit committee. Monitor the financial position of the company, making sure that the financial reporting process is as smooth and as objective and unbiased as the quality of the financial reporting is ensured by the audit committee are directly responsible for making sure that the financial reporting quality is of top class. And if it is a company like Finnair, then you have to be even more cautious because it's a very reputation issue. If you have some kind of, if you submit the reports and you are given conditional acceptance by the government of Finland, then it's not a very good sign on you. So you have to have the reporting so true, so well prepared, so objective, and the whole process has to be so transparent and unbiased that the quality of financial reporting should be trustworthy. So, and Finnair has classic, the quality of financial reporting is really great. And then comes this remuneration committee, the one who fixes the salary, the other benefits of the top leadership of the company, and the jobs, the key responsibilities are given. So these are very interesting fields which when you explore. And then comes the company management. This is what I was thinking, that if I look at some American or the British companies' annual report, they would call it executive board and non-executive board. But here, for the Finnish company, they don't use the word board, but they call it management. So that includes. And I think they should be, yeah, here we go. So that's the executive board. I wonder if they use the word board for it. Very rare, I've seen. But anyway, the executive board comes. Maybe I was wrong. And these are the people who run the show on regular basis. And it's nice to have their CV also. The CEO is very young, Tropi Manner, just 46-year-old. The key positions elsewhere, he's vice chairman, Finland Chamber of Commerce, which is a very key position. Finland Chamber of Commerce basically is a group of all the Finnish companies who are, so it's more like a professional body. And then I want to see that how diverse the board seems to be. Gender-wise, we have 2 and 3, 5 ladies. How diverse is in terms of nationality? It doesn't seem to be very diverse in terms of, it's not very international board. Do you find any non-Fin in the executive team? Maybe. Apparently, I'm not sure about these 2 last names, but they don't seem to be. Maybe they are. Okay, let's see. I'll come back to it if they have any such classification. Well, this information is not given actually, that how diverse the executive board of directors is. Well, this gentleman he's the chairman of the board of directors, Nordea Credit. And he is, okay, so you can see that the shareholdings, they also have the shares given by the company. Okay. There's nothing much said about, or maybe, for example, here, nobody has any key position of trust. Well, this lady is very interesting. She has very interesting. She's a member of the board of directors, Savolina Opera Festival Limited. She has some cultural background. Is anything else I should talk about? I don't want to touch remuneration much now, because I have a specific topic which we shall discuss next week about executive compensation. So when I discuss that theory of executive compensation, I'll come back to Finnair again, and then we shall have discussion about the remuneration, that how much these top people are paid. Of course, Finnish executives are not paid as much as the American top executive are, or even the British top, because the companies are not as big as the other global companies. So basically, if I be truthful to you, we have covered everything for today, and you have some job to do. I expect from you that you will pick up some Finnish company, or at least, I think it's a good idea to study some Nordic companies, Finnish, Swedish company, and go through their corporate governance report and see, do you notice any peculiar characteristics? And because most of the discussion in the theory, which I have done, is more about the Anglo-Saxon companies. And do you find some common denominator between the Finnish companies' corporate governance system practices vis-a-vis the literature, which is majorly written in the context of the Anglo-Saxon companies? So I think you can do this thing. I'm not giving you any very specific homework, but I expect that when we meet next week, you should have seen at least one other company in Finland or in the other Nordic countries, and make some kind of your own sort of own observations. Because if you see the literature, most of the literature which you find in the context of corporate governance is written in the Anglo-Saxon system. But now we are seeing the company's example from, which is very opposite, because the Finnish corporate governance system is more like more influenced by the German or the European corporate governance system. So we can make some kind of comparison between the two. If you look at the Finnish corporate governance system here, the corporate governance problem is less vertical and more horizontal. But the literature which I have shared with you, and the literature which is more available in the top journals, is in the context of the vertical corporate governance problem. But still, there are some common grounds. So it's interesting to study theories in the one context and see the example in the other context and compare some overlaps and observe some overlaps if they are in. So basically, that's it for today.